I really want to start with thanking you about accepting this and, working with me with finding the right SWOT, obviously, and going through all the technical issues, obviously. So yeah, thank you. Thank you for making the time, and thank you for being so positive and open about that. I really, really massively appreciate it.
My pleasure, and thank you for having me. I mean, it's great to be.
Amazing, thank you. Do you usually get like a lot of interview requests of this sort?
A few every once in a while, depending which. I've done a lot of like American broadcasting, news outlets whenever I travel and do shows wherever.
Yeah.
So I'm no stranger to it. But yeah, it's always I'm always open to talking to everyone and seeing what other perspectives there are in the world.
Nice. That's such a good way to to express the whole dynamic within a conversation with another person. I think it's exactly interesting to find how other people perceive the world. I think that's so rare. I was so happy when I came across you and your work, because, I've been recently very much captivated, obviously, by art in general, and it's been my biggest passion ever since. I think you are the first person that is really experienced in this area and that has such a great outlook on everything that goes to this field. And I'm so, interested just to pick your brains. And as you've said, I think that's such a good wording to perceive the world through your eyes, So obviously I came, across your name through, your grandfather, I think, correct? Great grandfather, yes. He was actually the painter that made me so into art. And I literally, I was reading a book about him, and there was something about, saying about his descendants. And I was like, I so want to, to get in touch, with people who has such a great mentality, I think, towards the world. And I came across a show that you did, Beauty Remains, which, which I think is, an idea that captivated me a lot, And what I really liked about you is that, and I'm sure you would agree or you might disagree, but there are many descendants that are out there that are trying just to copy and follow their, their grandparents' work and to sort of follow their steps. But what I really liked about you is that you have developed your very own style that at the same time brings this very joyful and enchanting and this very vibrant, welcome wife that I liked with your, with your great grandfather as well. After this, probably too long intro, the first thing I wanted to ask you, how was the process for you to, to be part of such a family with such strong traditions and be influenced by it, but at the same time to develop your own style? I'm really curious about that.
The intro was beautiful. I liked it very much. I do have to warn you that I get somewhat distracted and I am full of stories and history that I want to share.
Nice.
You hit like 3 or 4 buttons that I want to share.
Please do.
One of my favorite parts, and they all sort of come together in answering the final question. You were talking about the show that I did in Nashville, Beauty Remains, and and how I've melded and created my own sort of variation. And it's true. A lot of people were asking me, well, why don't you just repaint all of his paintings? I said, because I'm not him.
Exactly.
I am me, and I wanted to do something that's very much myself. But I still, Picasso once said that a good artist will borrow, but a great artist will steal, right? And I like to appropriate bits and pieces of really philosophies of a lot of these great masters and how they had lived their life. One of my great grandfathers, which I am deeply honored to be able to know so much history behind. One of his sayings, which I take to heart as part of the core of how I paint, came as a joke. Manet used to tell Monet to tell his friend Renoir to get another job because he's never going to make it as a painter unless he uses black in his paintings, right? My great-grandfather never used very much black. He used to want to color everything. The world is full of color. But later on, he did start using a little bit of black, saying it's the queen of all colors because it makes the others stand out more. But my great-grandfather would tell Monet to tell his buddy Manet to cram it because there's enough dark and ugly things in the world. He doesn't want to add any more. And I love that idea. I love that philosophy. And this is the core of how I paint and of me. And in your intro about the so many quotes and so many philosophies that I love so very much, with the beauty remains, that's another quote, which came from when, Pablo Picasso's favorite artist of all time was Pierre-Auguste Renoir. He absolutely idolized him. He called him the master. This is Picasso calling my great-grandfather the master. Now, he went early 1900s, like I'd say somewhere about 1910-ish, 1912, went to go see my great-grandfather paint. And it was there's a big story that sort of goes along with it. And he gets there, and my great grandfather is very old, and his hands are gnarled because he had horrible arthritis, right? And he is painting. He's still painting, and Pablo Picasso looks at him, and he's watching this. My great grandfather held his paintbrush to the day he died. He never tied it on. People say that. It's not true. The two things he did till the day he died was hold his own paintbrush and roll his own cigarettes because he didn't want somebody else to slobber on them. But Pablo Picasso looks at him struggling, holding the paintbrush and painting, and there's obvious pain on his face as he's painting. My great-grandfather is old, and he's in his wheelchair, and he's still working. And Picasso goes, well, I mean, doesn't it hurt? He goes, of course, but the pain will fade. The beauty will remain. And I love that idea. And it's true, of all the things that happened in the world and in life, if I can paint a happy, a bright, a light moment in time that somebody can, have in their peripheral to lighten their day. And if it brightens their day just a little bit, then I've done my job. And I don't remember if I answered your question, but there it is.
You absolutely did. And I think you encapsulated everything that I found fascinating in art in general. Because it gives you, such a strong virtue towards what life truly is about. And I really, and correct me if I'm wrong. And I would love to hear a lot of those stories you have. But I literally read the biography of your great-grandfather by Henri Perrichot. I don't know if this is the way you pronounce the name, but, pardon me. Yeah. And in comparison with all of his colleagues in this area, he was such a positive and vibrant and alive person, which I really like. And do you feel something like that in yourself? Do you think you share this mentality as well?
I mean, kind of.
Yeah.
But yes, the world is vastly different for what he
Yeah,
had to
absolutely.
do. I am global. I mean, right now we are almost on opposite sides of the planet, and we're having an amazing conversation. This is something that is it's a beautiful thing. Oh, there's so many stories I could tell you about his time and his life, and then compare it to mine. You know, I also have a great set of friends that are also, you know, painters and sculptors and everything, that in time, maybe 100 years from now, you know, people will be having a cast on us. I don't know. And you know, I never want to presume that something like this would be for me, but you know, we hang out, we eat, we drink, we talk art, we talk technique, we talk everything. And the thing is, all those old masters did the exact same thing. They all hung out. The one of my favorite Pierre-Auguste Renoir paintings is the Luncheon of the Boating Party, right? Iconic. Now, what a lot of people don't understand is that painting was made as a reply to, how do I even put it? The newspaper in Paris, Le Figaro, had published an article that coined the term impressionism. Impressionism was meant as an insult, sort of. The interviewer said, or not the interviewer, the article, a person had put in that these people, they're not Barbizon, they're not realists, no, they're not classically trained, they only make impressions of things, they're impressionists, and it stuck. Now, he said that these people, they just paint off the cuff. There's no planning, there's nothing. My great-grandfather spent 6 months planning how to paint the Luncheon of the Boating Party, and it took him months on end to actually paint it. Everyone came in separately. There's all friends and families and models from everywhere. The location itself was a cafe called Café Fournaise, which still exists in Paris. You have to make like a reservation months ahead of time. And you have a luncheon in this, like right there. And the thing was, that location was where they all hung out. The owner, Alphonse and Alphonsine Fournaise, brother and sister who owned the cafe, would allow all the impressionists, all the painters to pay for their tabs in paintings. Which it sounds like a good idea.
Very entrepreneurial, yeah.
Unfortunately, they didn't think it was worth anything, so they got rid of the paintings and died penniless. But all in all, you know, like the camaraderie, the joy and the sharing, I do have that in my life, but it's vastly different because my world is so much bigger. I've got friends all over the world, and you know, I travel all over the world, and I get to see them once in a great while. But it's like this amazing, extra large, you know, space for exploration and joy that I am privileged to have.
That's such a fantastic answer, you know, and I think you answered this question so well and accurately. So how, you know, what was the point in time where you realized that you also want to be a painter and that this is the thing that you want to do? How did this happen for you?
Well, that goes, okay. As far back as I can remember, I was always a very creative person. Like, I was the only 7-year-old I knew who was allowed to use like the X-Acto knife blades. Because I would build entire cities out of cardboard in the basement of my parents' house, just so I could stomp through it like Godzilla. I would go and do you remember those? There were those mobiles that were the big round discs, usually red, right? I would see this in a store, and instead of wanting to get one, I would raid every closet and steal every wire hanger, and I would make dozens of these things. So as far back as possible, I remember always being highly creative. And my friends growing up with me, whenever they saw something they liked, they said, well, can I have that? I said, yes, take it. I need the space, you know, and it sort of grew from that. And in my life, I've, whatever I was doing, I would go home and I would paint or I would sketch or I would something, to relax while I try to figure, what am I going to do with my life, And that was the funny thing. I'm a goldsmith and a silversmith. I trained to cut and refine gemstones. I've worked in photography, movie, radio, TV. I've tried theater. I've worked in bars and nightclubs. I've done security jobs. I've done a little bit of everything. I've been a carpenter. I've done everything you can imagine. But at the end of the day, I'd go home and paint. Now, about 20, what year is it now? Yeah, about 22, 23 years ago, my brother, who was living in California, in La Jolla, California, which is very prestigious, and I was living in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada at the time. Very cold. And in the middle of winter, he phones me up and goes, "Hey, you want to come down for a vacation?" I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I do." It's minus 40 here. I'm on my way. And I get to his home a few days later. And I remember we landed late. It was like 10:30 in the evening. And we get to his place. It's it's like 11:30 at night. And he looks at me and goes, "Well, where's your portfolio?" I said,
"What?
What do I need a portfolio for a vacation?" He goes, No. Tomorrow we're going to drive to Los Angeles, to Beverly Hills, and talk to some publishers to see if we can't get something worked out for you. I'm like, a little warning would have been good. So I rampage through his house. I find some paper, some pencils, and some whatever, and I make a dozen sketches, like real fast and dirty. Next day, I'm like, well, this is what I could do. So we went and we saw a bunch of different people. And I remember I'm sitting in this, one of the most imposing offices I've ever seen. The space, and this is on Rodeo Drive, right? One of the most expensive and prestigious, and we're in this office, which is, I couldn't tell you, it's got 10-meter ceilings. It's this huge thing. The man sitting there is behind a desk, which is a solid piece of marble that might have been chipped at the Colosseum, with pillars and everything. And there's Monet and Renoir and Degas and everything all around. And I'm sitting and looking. On one corner, there is a painting that is easily the largest painting I've ever seen that's on canvas. It is, what was it? Maybe, I'm going to go with meters. I got to say 5 or 6 meters tall, with another maybe 8 to 10 meters long, taking up an entire wall. Apparently they had to cut a hole in the wall to get the thing in and out. And it was a very ugly painting, but it doesn't matter. Well, it had cows on it, so I guess it's all right.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there in front of this man in this office in this whole thing, and he's completely very well dressed and very, very upright and here I am in Hawaiian shirt and shorts. You got to be who you are, and he's looking at these sketches. He's like, "You did these?" I said, "Well, yes." He goes, "You did these last night?" I said, "Well, yes." He goes, "You want to do this for a living?" I said, "Yes." And that's how it officially started. Now, before that, don't get me wrong, I had friends with galleries and friends with cafes, and I would go to little art, events here and there and sort of worked on it, but it was more of a hobby or an extended hobby while I figure, what am I going to do? Right? Now, and with design and everything, commercial arts, I was going in that direction. And all of a sudden, this opportunity opens up, and it's like, I can do this for a living? Okay. And I jumped on it. And it's been 22, 23 years where I have done nothing but. And it has been, so far, an amazing and beautiful experience. I get to meet some wonderful, truly wonderful and fantastic people all around the world. You are one of them. It's such an honor for me I have some friends that are very happy with their own self-being. I don't get it. I don't. The spice of life is the stories that you get to share and meet and experience. The best places I get to learn about where to go, I learn from people who've been there, who know there, who live there, and hide those places. And I love it.
Wow.
The experience to have been able to go and live a life of absolute wonder, and to be able to come back and share all of my paintings have a story behind them of where I've been and what I've done and what I've seen and who I've been with, and they all have a meaning. They all have a story behind them. Except for those are excellent. And it's my honor to be there, and it's my honor to do that. And so when I started was my entire life ago, officially 22, 23 years ago.
Yeah.
But as far back as I remember, that was always there. It was always with me.
It's so motivational just to hear you speak about that and express your approach to the world. I think it's so rare nowadays to actually meet people who actually appreciate what they have and what we are presented with in general. Which I think it's such a beautiful thing.
It's easy to lose everything you have, so you have to appreciate where you are and when you are, and the people around you. You can't be an island unto yourself.
Yeah.
That's very lonely. It could be a gold-covered island, but if there's no one else there, I learned a long time ago. I do a lot of international travel. I do shows all over the world, and but the thing, it's a common theme. I end up going to the same places a lot,
Yeah.
right? And some people ask me, well, don't you ever get tired, of like telling your stories and doing your thing? I says, well, absolutely not. Number one, it's the first time somebody has asked me, right? I get joy out of the joy they get from hearing. Like I call myself there's a lot of historians out there and connoisseurs that'll tell you who was where and when.
Yeah.
But I'm the family gossip. I'll tell you why they were there. I am in this beautifully unique position. Well, it's not completely unique because I got brothers and sisters and everybody, but that I was able to hear the family stories. And everyone's got family stories. Everyone's got, crazy Aunt Susan who does something strange on the lawn, right? Mine just happens to be named Renoir, and there's connections to all the other families. Like, a very close friend of mine is from the Pissarro family. Another one was Matisse, all these big names. But to me, it's Lilia, it's Pierre, it's Philippe. It's like all these people, they're just people. And they have amazing and wonderful family stories. When you go out and you have lunch together and you talk, and like always, especially when you're in France, you talk politics, you talk art, you talk mushrooms. So you get through the entire thing. And when we get to family, we start telling these crazy stories. And you're like, that does not make it in the history books. Or, I got stories on Salvador Dali, which are spectacular. I love them, right? I mean, I got one where he's on a couch, but that's a different thing. I keep saying, I am so incredibly lucky to be able to gather this. And so when I travel, when I go out, I love sharing it. I love being able to talk to people and meet people, make friends all over the world. And for me, having gone to the same place over and over, it's not a drag. Having told the same story over and over, I love it. And without everyone who's interested in hearing what I have to say, I'm just a crazy guy who plays with paint in a garage. So, be grateful for the life that you have right now. Don't miss the life that's already gone. That's past. You can't do anything about it. I look back and have very few regrets, because the choices I have made in my past have made me who I am here today. And I know that's kind of cliche, but the best I can do for the future me is to be true to who I am now.
That's beautiful. And And I'm so glad that, you've mentioned all of this because, prior to our conversation, I was slightly worried because I assumed I would be asking you a lot of things that you've probably heard a million times, but yeah, it's a relief. It's a relief that you don't mind that anyway. So I'm very curious to hear because, and as you've mentioned, I do believe that basically being an artist of any sort, it just starts with you and the way that you look at life and the way that you approach, the way of perceiving everything around you. But do you have like a memory or any sort of a story in terms of what was the first thing that made you think, wow, that's beautiful and I want to paint that, I want to recreate it?
Yeah. Oh my God, you like hit the nail right on the head. Like, like that was a perfect question. I get asked, what is it do I collect myself, right? Yeah. And other than fridge magnets, and I have my entire fridge is covered, and I got like tons. Yeah. But what I collect is moments in time. That's what I use to paint, moments in time. And everyone has experienced this at least once in their life. That moment in time when you are so incredibly in a place where you look and it's like your world expands and contracts and sound dims and is light, like you are so very there and you perceive and soak in that people say, oh, when you go to Tuscany and you stand on the balcony and you see the sunset and the cypress and the birds and the thing and the colors, and it's so beautiful that it soaks into your soul. That's what I collect. And it started when I was very, very young. We had just moved to Canada. I was born in France, a place called Cagnes-sur-Mer, right next to Nice, Monaco, Canyon, and Nice, right? And my father decided there was opportunities to be had in the Wild West. He just picked very northwest, and we ended up in Canada. Northern Canada, northwestern Canada, not even the French side, the English side. Oh, yeah. And my mother had this one friend who lived up the, I guess it would be the western coast of Vancouver Island. Like there's this big island chain that goes all the way up, who lived up there. And we were going to go visit her friend, and we were driving. And I remember it was like the coastal highway, like just right next to like the water's here, the road, and it was right the perfect time of the season where all of the blackberries and the raspberries were like they're wild, they're everywhere. And I was, I don't know, 7, 8 years old maybe, and we would stop every few kilometers, and I would get out and I would be stuffing myself, but like just covered in juice, sticky and like hair. And I would chase after the biggest, juiciest, best berries that, and I remember I came through these like these bushes, like from the thing, and I was on an outcropping of earth and stone. And I came out to this, and it was the ocean. But there's moments in time where, it's still night over here and it's day over here, and like that entire sort of thing. And I had the entire, ocean right in front of me on this outcrop of rock covered in berry juices and high on sugar. And I'm sitting there 7, 8 years old looking at the world that crashes into my eyes for the first time. And there's, like the storm sort of brewing out in the ocean there on the darker side, and it's coming in, but then it gets light, and you go down the coast, and there's the first time I've ever seen a lighthouse. And it's like right there, and this towering, sentinel of safety for the ocean is right there. And I'm sitting there high wired, just stunned. And that was the very first moment that I ever, soaked that in. That was the first collection I ever made. And that is something that reoccurs in my paintings a lot. I love to paint the lighthouses, and a lot of water. I've always been connected to the water, lots of sailing. My family has a lot of sailing history, but for me, the very, very first one was probably that one when I was probably around 7 or 8 years old. And that's where it all really began.
Wow, that's so fascinating, just to, exactly to see such a moment from your perspective. It's so beautiful. So I'm sure that you sound as you have a collection of great moments of this sort, and I know that all of them are probably very special to you in a different way. But still, have you experienced an overwhelming moment of this sort that is slightly different than all of the rest? Like something that is massively, shocking in a way, or, just different?
Well, but that's really, really hard to quantify, to put like a label on it, because I'll give you another stupid story.
Please do.
Well, it's not really. It's part of how I live, and how I'm able to do what I do. Is that one of the hardest things I ever trained myself for was to pay attention. Now, that sounds silly, but here's the thing. We've all done it. Everyone does. Ever driven to your local store, right, to get something, but you don't remember anything of the drive.
Yeah.
Because you're autopilot or gone somewhere and you're not paying attention to anything around you. The hardest thing for me to do is to try to pay attention to everything around me all the time. You will find amazing, beautiful little sparks of life that people walk past all the time. It's astounding what you can see in the world when you pay attention, when you actually look. And, so for me to pick something that was especially stunning is really difficult, because I kind of see it all like that. Like,
nice. Yeah.
You have to. I've had experiences there. I once, had a horrible car accident where the car flipped end over end and side to side, and we landed. My best friend and I were in the car. Landed, it skid half a block down on its side, and I remember holding onto the steering wheel while we're on our side, sliding backwards, and gravel and sparks are flying through the window, and my friends are like, ah! And that one is very memorable, but I'm not going to paint it. We were both completely fine. Moments like that, there's lots of moments like that. No, it's really hard to decide.
I sort of thought that would be the answer to this question, and in all fairness, I'm glad it is. But let me give you another one. Have you experienced a moment like that you have missed the opportunity to paint?
No. Wherever I am, whatever I experience, number one, nowadays I got my phone has more camera on it than is conceivable to some people, and I aggravate my family tremendously. My wife loves to go hiking, and we've gone to some beautiful and amazing places. Like we've gone to the Tiger's Nest in Bhutan, right? Which is amazing. It's beautiful. It's absolutely stunning. It takes like 3 hours to hike 45 degrees up to get to the top of, to get to the 7 monasteries stuck on the side of a mountain, right? It takes you 2 hours to hike out. And, I'm not in the best shape, but, she is. So she's running up. I've got a 3-legged dog that is following me. There's nothing. And this thing would go up 20 feet, sit down and wait for me. And I'd go up, sit, and I'd pet him. And then he'd get up. And so this 3-legged dog helped beat me up the mountain. And every time every time I stop, I really go and I look and I process everything around me, all the flowers, all the trees, all the atmosphere of where you are. I almost taste the light whenever I go anywhere. Like you can, there's a feel and like a consistency to anywhere that you go. And so my wife is like running up this mountain, and I stop to take pictures of a slightly torn, prayer flag that is hanging off of a branch that was blown off of another mountain somewhere. I take these pictures. And so in my travels in the world and everything, I really soak everything in, and I take pictures of absolutely everything. But I also, I bring home what is in my heart that I truly feel I need to paint. And I try to paint that, more of the feeling and the texture and that flavor and that light and the colors and everything, more than exactly how many windows there were. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I tried to put the essence, I tried to put the impression.
Nice. Yeah.
That's what I aim for. So, yeah.
Wow. Wow. Do I think, as I started, the conversation, I think it's such an important question for a person nowadays to have this, appreciation towards what we have around us. And I think it's so, upsetting that most of the people don't have that. Do you think that, having this level of appreciation for everything that's around us is something that you can develop and open yourself to? Or do you think it's more about a character specification that if you don't have, you just don't have?
No, I think that everybody is capable of everything, in my opinion. It's that drive and determination, and life will, guide you sometimes. You have no choice. A lot of your situation, I am exceedingly lucky to be able to go to some of these places that are extremely difficult, if not restricted. So for that, again, I am more than grateful, and I understand that I am, very privileged in that sense, but I believe that there's an old Aboriginal saying, the North American Aboriginal, that within you there are two wolves.
Yes.
One is good and one is bad. It's the one you feed is the one that's strong, right? I love that. I believe in that. And I think that, if you want to change that perspective, you can. But there's a certain, amount of resistance to change. Everyone has. I mean, I do. There's a certain hurt people, right? Never.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've all had our traumas. Everyone has. Everyone does.
Absolutely.
No matter. You look at someone, you're like, this is a hateful person. To me, I look at that person, I say, well, what is it in their world? Because no one is born this way. No one is, you are created and you feed a certain wolf to get to there, but you can feed a different one. You can absolutely pick a different path, right? The motivation is, there's a reward gratification system within all of us. What I say some crap on the internet and it blows up, right? That's my reward for saying that crap, right? And it sort of comes back, and that's the instant gratification. But there are other forms. You just have to find the direction to go, right? And what's really, really hard is that a lot of time there's no one and nothing to show that there's another direction. So, stick in the path that they're going for. I don't think anybody out there is purely evil, is purely bad, is purely well. There's a couple of varieties that need to do, but for me, they need heavy therapy, right? And then repercussions for the things they've done. Yeah. But I do believe that there is reconciliation and salvation for anybody who searches for it.
That's amazing. I do believe that as well. As you've mentioned, everything is, every fact has a reason, right? So it's inevitable. So have you found yourself in a position where you had to discipline yourself to assess a certain situation in a different way? Maybe because of a heavy daily routine or whatever, and you're like, oh, I don't want to travel, I'm exhausted, I just want to stay. And after that, you're like, hey, I'm privileged enough to have this opportunity, I should not think about like that. Have you had the moments of this sort?
All the time. All the time. It's like, we all fall for that. We all do. Yeah. So all the time, it's like, oh, boo, I got to go to this thing. And then I stop myself. I'm like, shut up. Like, look where you are. Oh, no. Right? Like, what are you even thinking? Like, for my birthday, I got to go into Stonehenge. Like within the stones, I get to wander around in Stonehenge. That is spectacular. And you find yourself to be all the time. And my personal demon is driving. Yeah, I get impatient. Yeah, and I'm like, no, that guy is, and I said, no, they're not. Just stop. Like, yes, they could conceivably go the speed limit. I'd be happy with that, but I don't know what their situation is. They could, just breathe. Just don't and we all fall for these certain, traps out in the world. It's inevitable. It's human. So, yeah.
I think it's, that's why it's important sometimes for us to be understanding towards ourselves as well, because sometimes this is backfiring a bit too.
Absolutely. Everyone's, an artist's worst critic, who that is?
Himself.
I'll tell you another stupid Renoir story. I love it.
Please do.
All artists have a system to figure out when they are done painting something, because otherwise we'll keep painting it until we ruin it. Yeah. There has to be a point. My philosophy or my theory behind it is that from when you start the painting to when you more or less finish the painting, you've changed just enough that you might want to try something different from the start again. And then do it, and then do it again, and then you can turn it into a big block of mud.
Yeah.
So every artist has a different system for when they're done painting a painting, right? For me, it's when there is nothing more I need to do, just something I might fix. That's when I know I'm done, right? Right? If I just do this, no, stop. My great-grandfather had a fantastic, I love this. He was being interviewed later on in life. And funnily, by Le Figaro in Paris that, slammed him, 40 years before. And they're asking him, oh, Monsieur Renoir, your landscapes, they're beautiful, they're verdant, they're so soft and everything. How do you know when you're finished painting one of these paintings? And he tells it, and he goes, that is an excellent question. A lot of artists have a different way of deciding that. He says, but for me, it is when I wish to enter the painting and touch everything. That is when I know I am finished. And the interviewer goes, wow, that is a great answer. But wait, Monsieur Renoir, you paint beautiful, voluptuous nudes as well. How do you know when you finish painting one of those? And he goes, also a good question, but it's the same answer.
Amazing. That's, it's so interesting that, you touched on this topic, because personally, I've always, struggled to exactly find this moment to not overthink something or to stop doing it. And I've always been struggling with that. So it's such a great perspective you're giving here,
We all do. I mean, a songwriter will overwrite the song.
Exactly, yes, exactly.
A novelist will add too many words.
Exactly, yeah. But, you've mentioned your approach to that. And, you mentioned that you stop when there's just a tiny little bit thing that you would add. Yeah. But doesn't it bug you to leave it like that, knowing that you can add it?
But see, that's the thing. If the thing that I'm thinking of leaving actually bugs me, then I'm not done.
Okay.
If it's but if it's something that I look at and you go, if I just need just a little bit, that's when I know I'm done. But if I look at it and go, no, that's got to change, I'm not done. All right. It's when you're at the point that you look at it and you're 90% happy. Mm-hmm. It hardly ever gets to 100.
Yeah.
90% happy. And I look at it and I say, yeah, I like this piece. I have accomplished what I was setting out to do. I've found that balance. But if I just change this little piece over, then I know I'm done.
Yeah.
But if I look at it and I'm like, ooh, no, this has to change, that has to change.
Would you say that you're achieving this level of satisfaction and a sense of, of readiness with all of your work?
It's like asking if you have a favorite child.
Nah, yeah. Well, yeah.
You're not supposed to have a favorite child. Yeah. Everybody knows you have a favorite child. No, absolutely. There are within my day of painting, within my cycle of creation for a piece.
Yeah.
Sometimes I am so beautifully within that like I'm in the zone.
Yeah.
And everything just works, and I have it's all just yes. And then sometimes you're like, no, right? I have a whole collection of pieces that will never see the light of day out there in my closet over there, right? So there are ranges of how to put it, ranges of the depth of perfection that I seek,
Okay.
Like I said, I have to be at least like 90% happy with it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Anything really, there's a good 25%, no freaking way.
Yeah.
And this happens. Actually, what these guys are behind me are some of the paintings that I hated or it didn't work out the way I wanted. And then all the paint that I had left over at the end of the day, I just smeared on top in random patterns.
Wow.
My great-grandfather had another saying, with every new day, you need new ideas and new paint. So he never left paint behind. So I do the same. At the end of every day, I have whatever paint left over, and I throw it onto an old canvas. And I make these, it's free-form expression of light and color. And it just brightens up my room. I like it.
They're absolutely amazing, by the way. I'm so, into the impression. So, and I guess this is, I would love to hear your opinion, and I would love to hear if you have a story about this from your grandfather too. But how important it is for you how other people perceive your work in the way that you think about it?
Oh, you asked really, really good questions. You really, I call it a breaking glass moment, like a shattered glass moment.
Yeah.
Where when I create a piece, there's certain pieces that I make that I leave purposefully ambiguous on certain aspects because okay, another stupid story. Bunch of years ago, I was doing a show in a place called Kalamazoo. I did that show in a place called Kalamazoo because there was a place called Kalamazoo and I liked it, so I went and I did the show. It was great. It was a lot of fun. It was like this wonderful little funky town and everything, and beautiful gallery. I have all my pieces up and everything, and it's a reception, and everyone's coming in. I'm talking to everyone, and this young lady comes up to me and goes, "I really like this piece over here, but why did you paint the accusing eyes of my father in the window?" And I asked her, you should really ask yourself why you see the accusing eyes of your father in the window. But that gave me the thought and the idea that it's absolutely true that a lot of people will put a bit of themselves, and that's why I pick a base of impressionism. Impressionism leaves X amount out of the painting that the viewer puts themselves into, And I have a certain sets of paintings that I do that, are reminiscence of places and things, but there's certain aspects within that painting. Like, say, I paint this luscious garden and flowers all over. Some of the flowers are very ambiguous; they're the right color and shape and all that. And people will come up to me and says, "I can't believe you painted these, which were in my mother's yard." I'm like,
that's exactly what I was meaning to do. Yeah.
And in the broken glass, the shattered glass moment is when somebody says, "No, you have to tell me what this is." I don't want to, because if I tell you what I painted it as, that's how right now you see it, how you like.
Yes.
What's within your heart is in that painting, and I love being able to play with my creations that way. And in all honesty, I can't remember what the actual question was.
Yeah, I think you responded to it pretty nice, So I think it was a great answer either way. But to maybe give you the second part of the question that you didn't answer. I read that obviously your great grandfather experienced a lot of rejection towards his work during and I've always been very I've always admired him a lot that he just kept on doing what he felt is the right decision and what he felt it's coming from him, without, adjusting his style towards what others wanted him to do. So I think, I guess what I'm trying to ask is, how difficult it is for you to stay true to yourself and stay true to your art, regardless of the obstacles and regardless of the circumstances?
I remember now. Yes. When I was much younger, it was very, very difficult. And it was one of the reasons why, it took up until 22, 23 years ago for me to actually launch into this as a full-time career, is that I was very, very sensitive.
Yeah.
And apprehensive. I mean, my great-grandfather was the freaking master. Like, he was one of the people who invented an entire genre of art that opened up everything for everything that followed after. Like, everything after is partly his fault.
Yeah, true.
He's very intimidated by that. And I remember I was still doing some like speaking tours that I would go and I would talk. I remember this one time there was an older gentleman in one of the front rows who says, your work is very nice, but your great-grandfather was a master. And it dawned on me at that moment. He says, well, yes. And it took him 79 years in which to get there. Come talk to me in 79 years. And from that moment, I really decided that I am going to paint for me, what I love. And I'm going to stay true to my own vision, and not worry, because you know what? There's always going to be somebody who doesn't like a thing that you do. That's okay. That is okay. It's not going to kill you, right? Like the fear of rejection is one of the most almost it's a crippling thing for a lot of people, which has the least amount of repercussion. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that's
what if they say no? And I say, then did your arm fall off? Then they say no. And on the opposite side, from my wife, I learned, an amazing woman, just absolutely astounding. She came out with this one is, if you don't ask, the answer is always no.
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. Your fear of rejection is automatically rejection if you don't put it out. If you want to use that as a propelling force to go for it, you never know. If no happens, no happens. That's okay. That is absolutely all right. And for me, I paint what I love. I paint what I see. I paint the life and the world around me. And if somebody that doesn't like it, that's okay. You know what? I got these great artist friends. Let me show you some of their work. And I do. I absolutely do. You don't like my stuff? No problem. What do you like? Look, I got this guy, and this guy. We're totally up your alley. And yeah.
Amazing. That's, such a good response. And, you actually touched on something that I also wanted to ask you. As you see, I came very prepared. I've had tons of questions I'm just ready to to ask. You've mentioned, the time of your life where, when you had to sort of, not compete, but be aware of who your great grandfather is. So, I'm interested how is this moment of your life for you? Like, were you influenced by who he was? Were you sort of, not afraid, but sort of, as you've mentioned, intimidated by it? Was it a burden to be, to be his great grandson?
Okay, how do I even answer that one? Like all kids, I had no clue.
Yeah.
And I didn't care.
Yeah,
right?
Nice. Yeah.
As an example, my kids, I take them sometimes to the shows with me. They ask me, like, why does anybody want to listen to you? Right? When you're much younger, you get this blissful bubble around you that, and it's totally normal. It's totally all right. Yeah, I grew up with like a 600 book library on my ancestry. I was very aware of my ancestry. I didn't care, right? It was sort of a normal thing. That's just what it was. Only later did I find out that some of my friends weren't allowed to come to my house because we had like nudes. I'm like, well, what do you mean? In my living room, we had a 7-foot tall nude sculpture of my great grandmother. My friends would say, hey, I said, no. But it's sort of normal. That was just the way it was, right? If we go visit somewhere, it's like we got to go see the Picassos, and we're not talking about the paintings, right? Yeah. Like all these families just kind of hang out together.
Yeah.
So I was in this bubble of only a little later that I realized, not everybody gets this sort of treatment. And that really opened up my eyes to the world and made me really focus outward. So for me, my great grandfather wasn't intimidating. Yeah. Impressive, like highly accomplished, like it casts a great shadow. But for me, hearing the stories of how he was and what he was and the things that he did in life and the charitableness and the valor, like, at the Franco-Prussian War, he fought, and he was he got medals for it, like the histories and the stories, and I got the feel of who he truly was. As an example, I love going to museums and not telling anybody I'm going. Love it. And then I follow the docents around to listen to the stories they have, to see what they're telling. Now, a few times, each time, I sit there and I kind of giggle because I know where that story comes from and how, and I know what parts are not really, like, it's a little, it's like, well, sort of, right? But you know what? It's not my gig. It's not that they're happy to do it. People are very happy to hear. But all right, go for it, right? And so for me, I love to see that there's still that much appreciation. But what always makes me kind of shake my head is that a lot of these guys are put on these pedestals as these paragons of virtue and art and. If you went to my great-grandfather's studio when he was in Paris, first you're going to a wild part of town, like Moulin Rouge is not too far away, right? I mean, it's sort of crazy. One of his favorite models, named Nini Lopez, was the founder of the female comedy, like French women comics. Yeah. It was one of their main, so she was a funny girl, right? Yeah. One of his favorite models. Okay, so traditionally at that time, when you went to a painter, you'd go into this dark study with books and carpets and everything, and it's very, maybe somebody will show you in, and they have the one easel out here, and it's covered in the cloth. And you go in to view your painting, and the artist will come out beautifully dressed with like the whole thing, right? And the puffy shirt and whatever, maybe the hat, right? And come up and he says, well, this, and he uncovers it once, is your painting, right? Behold. And then off you go, and you're like, beautiful, that's exactly what I want. Right now, if you go to my great-grandfather's studio, especially, but you go in there, you're through crowds, there's vendors, there's music, there's laughing, there's jugglers, there's women of ill repute over here, right? The entire thing, and you go up the stairs, and you almost have to push open the door to his place, and there's canvases and bits and bobs and pieces and things all over the place, right? And you come around the corner and you go into like the main sort of sitting and painting area, and maybe a nude person runs away half covered in the sheet, and he's sitting there with a glass of wine, a paintbrush, and a cigarette, right? And there's paint splattered everywhere, and there's half done, there's paintings everywhere, like the entire thing. They were about life. They were us. They absolutely were. And they didn't take it so seriously. It wasn't like the establishment at that time had locked it up so hard. You had to be Barbizon, you had to be a realist, you have to be a you had to be classic. You had to, like, all your paintings had to be, if you're doing a nude, it has to be like a mythology. It has to be Diana. It has to be Venus. It has to be religious. It has to be whichever. And these guys got together and drank a little bit too much absinthe and decided, you know what? I'm going to start shading stuff with blue. And the entire society of art lost their freaking minds. They're like, how dare you? The very first impressionistic art showing was done in a photography studio. Like, it's astounding. And for me and for these guys, what I was saying is that they're put on such high pedestals, but I get to hear the stories of how human they were and how flawed in some ways. And like, I especially love going to the Picasso Museum and listening to what people have to say about him, because I talk to his descendants, and they're like, Anyway, it's again, I'm very honored to be in the position I am, and I'm very honored to be able to share that.
Wow, that was, with with everything that you said, you literally just transferred me to that time, and I had such a, great. I imagined this so well. It was. I got chills. That was amazing, by the way. That's fantastic. I do think that or at least what really fascinated me in impressionists was exactly that. That they were not pretentious. They were not pompous. They just wanted to enjoy life and just showcase, I guess, the world through their eyes. And I mean, that's my reading. Obviously, as you mentioned, that way better than most of the people. But I just how I felt it.
Like I said, they were just people. Don't get me wrong. A little bit later, a few of them got a bit pompous, but that happens. I mean, when you start, you get to this big, huge thing, and right. But for me, it's kind of almost the same story. My family, when we moved to Canada, my father already spent everything my great grandfather left. So we started from scratch. I started from scratch, and to be able to experience and to go, and I love that I've had very humbling moments in life, and I've had astounding moments in life, but everybody I think has that bright spark within them that can lead to that sort of thing. And it goes back to, if you don't ask, the answer is always no, and the only fear you should have, rejection shouldn't be a fear. You'll never know. And I have a tendency to take those weird paths and end up in very strange situations, right? That later on turn into great stories, but at the time sometimes aren't so great, that sort of thing.
Earlier in the conversation, you mentioned that, you've done so many different things in your life until you got to the point of, painting for a living. What's a go-to story of yours about those moments? Like, what's a crazy moment that you've experienced as part of this period in your life? I'm very interested to hear that.
It's really hard because so many things are interconnected. And when I tell the story, I have to give you like bits and pieces. A bunch of years ago, my family was into, do you know what ammolite or ammonite is? It's a gemstone, also known as Alberta stone, because they can only find it in Alberta. Proper geological stress, heat, volcanoes, elephants pooping on it, whatever it needed to become what it became, right? Yeah. Now, my family was involved in a company that pretty much mined this stuff. And it was kind of a weird situation because a lot of it was on national and reservation lands. And you're not allowed to mine on those. Though you're allowed to build roads, and they can be pretty deep roads, right? Yeah. So various companies would road these minerals up, right? Yeah. And we were involved in one of these companies, and but since it was pretty not new, but a rare commodity, they didn't have any. Not safeguards, but monitors to see what's going on, all that. So I'm sitting there doing whatever I'm doing. I don't even remember, And my family turns to me and goes, "Hey, Alex, do you want to go learn how to cut and refine that stuff?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, all right." So I go and I apprentice and I go out and I'm literally in the mountains in Canada in Banff area, a place called Golden, not too far, where this one guy is teaching me how to cut and refine this stuff. And I'm there for a big chunk of time. And I learn. And so I was the 32nd person on the face of the planet who can cut and refine this stuff. So now I know what to do with this rock. Right. Yeah. So I come back and we get this whole factory and people were doing the thing and I'm supposed to watch that they're not burning it. Right. Because if you grind it too much, it heats up and it burns the actual color off. So I'm sort of watching this and it's pretty horribly boring. I mean, it's literally watching somebody slice a rock in half. And so I'm sitting there, I'm doing that because I got nothing better to do. Right. And then my family turns around and goes, well, we want to make this into jewelry too, but we got nobody who knows anything about jewelry. Do you want to go learn about jewelry? I said, yeah, sure, why not? So I go, and I apprentice for like 3 years under this one guy who teaches me how to gold and silversmith, and I start doing designs and all this and whatever. And it's really, there's the second part of the story. And, I go and I'm doing this thing, and so now I'm controlling the rocks and I'm controlling the gold, right? Putting the rocks in the gold, and they are being sold on cruise ships.
Okay.
Right, the cruise ships, they love selling the amylite, the gemstones. And then our business partner decided he really, really liked cocaine. So he emptied the accounts and moved to the Bahamas. So that was the end of that.
It happens, yeah. It happens.
Only a few years, but it happened. And so I float on the paths of life that take me. At the end of each day, I would go home and I'd paint something or whatever. But I'd pick up all these skills. And the funniest part is that when the company was bought out by the competitors, they bought all of my designs as well that came with the thing. They still sell my designs on cruise ships. I think it's hilarious.
That's amazing.
I get zero credit for it, but that's okay.
Well, that's the important thing.
People tell me, why don't you sue? I said, because I don't care. I think it's great. Like, go for it. Right?
That's a great one. That's a fantastic story, I must say.
I mean, I don't know. Like for me, that life, that sort of weird extracurricular.
Yeah.
I picked up how to gold, silver, platinum smith. I picked up how to cut and refine gemstones. I picked up a whole bunch of other skills and all that. And I think that's awesome because I can incorporate and use it in what I do today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was just, about to say that I'm sure, this has benefited you somehow, even artistically speaking. So it all leads to who you are,
No knowledge is useless knowledge.
Nice. Yeah, exactly.
I love collecting stupid facts, like, platypus is a monotreme, one of the only poisonous mammal things on Earth, right? Why do I need to know this? I don't, but I think it's cool.
You know what? I all of my friends are always saying because also AQ, I also know random facts in a big volume, and I don't even do it consciously. I just get it, and they're always like, "Why do you know that?" That's so strange, But it's so fun,
In part, I mean, because I get to travel, I talk to so many people of all skills. Like some of my best friends are like biochemists and
Nice.
science, deeply scientific types, which I'm like sort of drawn to. I'm like, wow, like you use that creativity to make these compounds and these things, and they're like, well, you have such a free mind to whatever. And so we sort of, and so I learn bits and pieces of biochemistry and seismology,
Nice.
like a little bit of everything. And when I first started going out with my wife, girlfriend at the time, I would talk and say something, and she's like, how could you, right? She's in the medical field, and I got doctor friends all over, and they're telling me about these cutting, state-of-the-art procedures that are being developed. I'm like, oh yeah, that's the thing where they use this and that. And she's like, what did you read the paper? I'm like, no, I talked to the guy who wrote it.
That's so funny to me because this is literally my girlfriend and I. She was like, how do you know that? Why do you know it? Having said all of that, if you are not a painter, what do you think you would be working if you are not a painter?
How do you even know to ask these questions? I mean, oh my, one of the things I love to say, like, oh my God, you are awesome in this way. One of the things I love to tell people is that if I wasn't a painter, I would be a chef.
Nice.
You know what I'm making for dinner tonight?
What?
I'm making an endive microgreen salad with stone fruit, boursin foam, and a homemade raspberry vinaigrette done with garlic, dill, onion, giant bean, cassoulet. And for the main, I'm doing chicken legs and thighs and encrusted in a garlic and a Dijon sort of thing. So that's regular dinner.
What wine are you drinking?
Unfortunately not. No wine for me.
Oh, really? Oh, no. Well, it still sounds absolutely delicious, though. So, yeah, I can see that because, I've always thought that being chef is actually a very artistic profession that not many people give credit to for its artistry,
I absolutely, a chef, like, see, there, in my opinion, you've got cooks and you have chefs.
Yeah.
A cook is a guy who just cooks,
True.
right?
Yeah.
He's got a list. He does, this is what I do, right?
Yeah.
The chef is a guy who tastes a thing and goes, I might go with this.
Yeah.
Another one of my guilty pleasures is that another thing I collect is Michelin stars.
Oh, nice.
I love finding Michelin restaurants. I love to see what the food, some of which is spectacular. My wife and I have different views on certain things, especially in those restaurants. And that is the snobbiest thing that I will say and do. Is I love going to eat in Michelin restaurants.
Yeah.
She really likes the places that serve a whole lot of little things.
Gotcha, yeah.
Where she gets to taste a little bit. Like we went to this one place, there was 17 courses, each of which was basically one bite, all of which were spectacular. And she's like, this is perfect. This is exactly what I want. I'm like, no, I want a plate of that one and another plate of that one. The way I see it is when you order a thing, I want to be able to like experience all aspects of it, right?
Yeah.
And instead of hop, wow, okay, now what? What's next?
Yeah.
I want to, and this is something I do when I travel and when I paint. I want to, when I'm in a place, in a space, wherever, I want to see it. I want to experience it. I want to get to know the people, get to know the place, find the restaurant that isn't full of tourists. Go find the hidden alcoves and the little coves and the thing that are around that people I one of my favorite. I love this place in Turkey called Kuşadası. You know it.
Kuşadası. I now Turkey food for me is one of the best in the world. I literally had turkey food yesterday. It's my favorite thing. One of my favorite things, obviously.
Well, we had Thai yesterday, but one of my favorite places on the planet. A lot of people go, no, go Istanbul. Nah, I don't want to do Istanbul. You can have fun there a little bit. I like going to the Grand Market, and then there's a stupid thing I say, hey, Bob, I found a deal, and then everybody pulls out. No, Bob, come here. Bob. Right? Which is, I tell everyone to try this. But if you go to Kuşadası, two of my favorite things, well, three happen there. 4, 5. You go when you come in off the port. There's that little market, it's like a mini bazaar, and everyone's doing the my friend, right? And I walk in, and this gentleman over here, I don't know what he was selling. He goes, oh, my friend, I got the best deals for you. So I say, in French, désolé, je ne parle pas anglais. I don't speak English, right? So he switches to French. He goes, mon ami, j'ai le meilleur marché. So I switch to English, and I say, I don't speak French either. He starts laughing. Goes, okay. He closes the store. We go drink. And so we went. Down around this corner was this little bar where I'm sitting with this guy and we're having, what were they called? Emphasis? Yeah, these beers, local.
Oh my God! It's on the tip of my tongue. Ethos.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. Yeah.
And he's like, you have to try. And, nobody makes me laugh. You made me laugh. We became sort of friends. And from that moment, and we're sitting there, we're just drinking. And out of nowhere, from around the corner, comes these two people I met years ago somewhere else on the planet. And they're like, Alex? I'm like, what? What are you even doing? What are you doing? And so, it's an amazing place. Also, not too far, I found this fish restaurant that you have to, you go up this ramp and you go through another restaurant, and then you have to go from one balcony to the next on this little ramp that's between the building. And that's where you want to go eat fish. Amazing, amazing place. And if you want to, there's this little hookah place, which is literally down a few alleys. You go around back, and you got like the old grandma who's making the bread in the corner on the thing, and everyone's got it like with the apple, like the whole thing, and everyone's playing backgammon, and that's what I love. I love to go and experience a place to its like maximum. I mean, there's the ruins behind it and all that, but whatever,
Yeah.
The flavor, the feel of that place is what I aimed for. It's one of my favorite places.
I mean, you literally answered my next two questions at once. Because I wanted to ask you whether you enjoy local food when you go visit new places. And my next question was like, which one of the places that you visited you really like, and what's a place that you want to go to as well? If you want to, double down on any of it.
See, that one's really, really difficult. I have been to Malta a few times.
Yeah.
I like Malta. I think the people in Malta are a little bit crazy.
They are.
But I love a lot of the history of Malta, like the idea that the ruling people in Malta, brilliant. Malta was never really something to be conquered. It was kind of on the way from one side to the other. It wasn't really necessary, but it's there anyway. So, okay. And every time an invading force would come in, the Maltese people would say, "We give up. We belong to you now." And by the way, we need church, we need schools. And so the new invading place was like, okay, we got to make schools. They have like 3 or 4 different military forts from different nations. I loved it. There's one big church in Malta that literally has a rotating wall. One side is Muslim and one side is Christian.
Yeah. No, yeah.
It's awesome. I love it. They're like, "Oh, who's in charge now? Okay, no, now it's your turn. We need hospitals. We need roads." They got everything paid for by invaders and didn't lose a single thing. So I love Malta. So many places on the planet which are spectacular to go to. Like I said, I love Turkey. I love Greece. I'm a lot of Mediterranean. I'm partial to, but
have you been to? And I'm asking that because you mentioned Turkey and Greece. Have you been to Bulgaria?
No, actually, surprisingly, I've not been to Bulgaria, and I want to. There's still many places I do want to go.
I'll send you an email after the conversation. But yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, no, there's so many. I mean, it's a big planet. I haven't been absolutely everywhere. I've hardly been anywhere in Africa. I mean, I don't count Egypt or Morocco. That doesn't really count. Going up all throughout the Mediterranean, I almost did the path. Then you go Eastern Europe, I've been to Russia, I've been Ukraine, I've done all these other places down all the Netherlands and all those guys. That's fine. Pretty much all of Europe, Belgium, Switzerland, all those. North America doesn't count because there's only 2 places.
Sure.
Well, 3.
Yeah.
And then you go down to South America. There's so many places I want to see. I want to go to Machu Picchu. I want. A couple of years ago, I went to Angkor Wat, which is spectacular, right? Cambodia. I love Thailand. Thailand is spectacular. There's so much Southeast Asia left, to see. I was supposed to go to Japan. I had this big, huge trip all planned out, but then somebody ate an undercooked bat.
Yeah.
I had to put that one on the back burner and replan the whole thing.
That's it for everyone, yeah.
There's so much more world to see, and I'm very excited to go and see it. Though I got to say, I hate the travel part.
Yeah, I know what you mean with that.
It's not me. The seats keep shrinking.
I've always found just the process of traveling for so annoying. Like, I like visiting new places, but the whole process of getting your baggage and preparing and, waiting on the airport for a couple of hours and whatever. It's just, I know what you mean.
Oh, yeah. It's crazy. Though I do have it down to a science, it still drives my wife crazy because I can pack literally in 5 minutes. Like the entire thing.
That's a talent.
I need that, bring this, bring that, I'm done. She literally lays everything out. She's like, well, I'm thinking of going with this and with that. I'm like, okay. I might need 2 bags. I'm like, okay. I've been doing this a long time. I know how to feed through the entire thing.
I can imagine that a part of being very quick, you are probably very place efficient as well.
Well, you learn throughout the year. It makes it slightly more endurable. Like I said, I hate the traveling part. I love the destinations. I love being able to finally get there. It's just, with the amount of flying I've done, another thing I love telling people is that you never want to see me on your airplane because we might not be going where it's supposed to. I've been rerouted so many. I still have like 3 sets of luggage that are wandering the world. I've gotten to go down the slide thing 3 times. It's crazy. Well, no ends of delays and whichever. I have angered the travel gods, and they love to mess with me. They're not trying to kill me. They're just trying to make my life a little more spicy. And, there's a song that says, 100 bad days makes 100 good stories, right? And I totally agree. And, my basic philosophies have gotten me into some trouble. I remember this one time I was coming from Copenhagen, and we went through Paris. Through Paris. For some reason, from Paris, we went to London, from London to New York, and there was delays and rerouting and all this. And by the time I got to New York, and I still had to get to California, which is another 6.5 hours away, from New York, I've already been I had the full day before Copenhagen, got to the planes, the whole thing. I had now been up for 28 or 30 hours, right? And my eyes are beet red and my hair is all messed up from various airplanes, and I got a crick in my neck and, just irritable and gross, and I probably smell like a sock. And, I get to, I think it was JFK. And I get there and they're like, oh, we're sorry. Your next flight, your connection has been moved to the other airport because there's 2 airports in New York. Right. So I'm like, okay, well, I get an hour and a half to make it. It's half an hour to get to the other airport. So, okay, fine. I jump in a cab, I'm like, okay, there goes number 4 set of luggage. I don't care. I want to go home, right? So I get to the other airport and I go to the front. They're like, oh, sorry, it's been moved back to the first airport.
Oh, no. What?
Okay, all right. So I jump back in a cab. I get to the first one. And now I've got like 20 minutes to make my flight. Like I got 20. There's still this much chance I can make it if I can get through security fast enough, right? And I get to the front. And my boarding pass had the 4 little X's that says you get special treatment, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so they're like, no, you got to step to the side. And I start to laugh. The guy looks at me and goes, why are you laughing? He says, well, and I tell him the story. I've been up for like 30 plus hours. I've gone to here to there. I've been rerouted. We weren't supposed to stop in London. And we come over here. I got 2 hours. They send me the one. They send me back. And now you stop me. And, you know, and I think that's funny. He's like, no one should think that's funny. You're going to the little room and I missed my flight, right?
Oh, no. What?
The way I see it, you have 2 choices in life. They thought I was stoned, right? You have 2 choices. You can laugh about it or you can cry about it. And I choose to laugh about it and it feels better. So
Absolutely.
big fan of the process of traveling, but I am a big fan of the destinations of traveling.
You know, this is such a philosophical saying that the destination is the most important thing. So, well, not exactly, because you have to enjoy the process itself, but
I figured that the airfare is like stubbing your toe on the road. It sucks, but you're still moving forward.
True. That's that's well said. Do we have enough time? I'm really worried not to, if you have any plans or anything.
We got like another 15-ish minutes.
Okay, so enough time for final questions. But I would love if at some point you're ready for part 2. I would love that because I still think that you have so many stories that, are worth saying.
There's so much more.
Yeah. So, okay. So let me just, prepare my final questions. I'll go to those 2 and I'll just leave the answering to you. I would be really curious to tell me like a story about your grandfather that, as you said, is not something that is very well known, but it's, something that's, something that's very interesting for you. Just something that, is not popular or whatever, just showing who he was as a person. And the next question I'm really curious to ask you is, aside of traveling, aside of painting, what do you like doing? Obviously, you mentioned cooking, but books, movies, sports, whatever, I would be curious to hear about that too.
All right. Well, we'll start with my great-grandfather.
Yeah.
There's so many little tidbits that really encompasses the kind of guy he was. He had a fantastic sense of humor.
Yeah.
I guess one of my favorites, least well-known, is that he was very much about, loyalty to his family, to his friends.
Mm-hmm.
He was the godfather to the Manet kids. He was godfather to the Monet kids. Everyone was godfather to everybody else.
Yeah, nice.
Claude Monet was his best friend in the whole wide world. Absolutely his best friend. And, they went to pretty much to school together. When they were young and they were going to, or my great-grandfather was going to l'École des Beaux-Arts in Paris. 2 of the things, they didn't come from any money. Nobody had money, right? He was, I think it was like the 5th son out of like 16 of them, right?
Yeah.
When he was that's a good story too. Never mind. When he was putting himself through l'École des Beaux-Arts, the way a lot of these artists did, and this is still a legitimate, mostly legitimate process, is that they would make representation of other artists more well-known and more popular, and they would sell them to English tourists that would come from England. and they would sell these paintings. So my great-grandfather's specialty was making Eugène Delacroix paintings. So he made Eugène Delacroix paintings to sell to English tourists. And I have run into a couple of the English families that were upset that they found out that they have a fake Delacroix painting. But what they don't know is that they probably have a real Renoir.
Whoa. Insane.
The fake Eugène Delacroix, so they would sell these paintings to pay their way through l'École des Beaux-Arts. Apart from that, nobody had any cash. Monet and Renoir, Claude and Pierre, lived together in a tenement building, like almost a slum, right? Now, this building was owned by Pierre-Auguste's cousins. Like, they owned it, right? They had the better slum apartment. And now, my great-grandfather would go out. He would do odd jobs. He would do anything. Like, he would go to cafe. He would go door to door, knock on doors, go to cafes and say, look, I will paint the decorations. Like, I will do the thing. Like, and they would like, yeah, sure, whatever. And so he would find, and throughout the day, he would get enough to buy a little bit of food, right? And he would bring it home. And then he would go to the cousins. And after they were done with their dinner, they would give their leftovers or whatever was left. And they felt like giving. They would give to my great-grandfather. I would take what he had done for the day, plus what he got from the cousins. And he would go home and he would share that with Monet, who had nothing. All right. So the fact that he had this commitment to friendship and to family and to whichever, I always found absolutely telling as to what kind of human he was. Right. That he valued it, and he always did for the rest of his life. He always valued that sense of family and loyalty. And the honor and the humility that he had, like, for example, you were not allowed to call him an artist. He was a painter because he painted. He used to say, the man who makes a chair, he puts his life, his passion, his skill, and his art into making a chair. Unless you call him an artist, you don't call me an artist. I paint, so I am a painter, right? That, or you can call me boss. What was the second part? Sorry.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's my fault. But how do you like spending your time, free time? And I guess a more interesting question is, what are some other avenues of art that influence your painting?
Okay. How do I like to spend my free time? Sleeping would be nice now.
I do appreciate that.
I start my day. I'm really very kind of oddly structured. I get up every day at 6 to 6:30 in the morning to start the day. I walk the dog. I take care of the family. I get everyone fed and out the door. Poof, off they go. I come to the studio. I am here pretty much all day. I paint. Another one of my great-grandfather's philosophies that I appropriated was, with every, whether you're painting or you're not, whether you feel it in your soul or you're drawing a blank, you should go to the studio and find something to do. There's always something to do in here. So I come in and I work on painting, or I work on lino cuts, or I work on any one of 100 projects I've started, and will eventually get there. And then I go and I get dinner, and I make dinner, then take care of everyone, the dog, the whole thing, and that's pretty my standard sort of day. Yeah. Now within that, I do love to read. I love reading. I love certain shows. I love artistic documentaries. So I like to watch those because a lot of some of it, I mean, they get into the techniques and all that, and I love the techniques and all that, but I like more the histories behind within the artists themselves. A lot of like Rembrandt. I know a ton of Rembrandt stuff. That publisher, the one with the giant marble desk and all that, was the world premiere Rembrandt guy. So I got to play with a whole lot of Rembrandt. Anyway, and I got to hear so many amazing and interesting stories.
Wow.
So I love to collect. I guess my main hobby would be to collect histories on anywhere and everywhere. the places I go to, like in Kushadasi, that's where the Nike symbol comes from the statue of the goddess of Nike. That comes from there, right? It's really cool. There's so many little things, and then there's never mind. The first advertisement for a lady is on the road in front of the. If you have enough money, this whole very beautiful. Come to this address. First one of those.
I've never heard that.
Stupid knowledge right here. So for me, I love collecting. I love collecting those little things, and I do like to find those restaurants. I need to work out a little more. Lately, I started doing Tai Chi of all things.
Nice,
which is great. It's like yoga mixed with some martial arts. It's great. It's a lot of fun, and you really start getting lost in the motions and the movements, and so. Hobby wise, it's a little bit of everything. I really wish the one thing I wish that I could do and I can't is play a musical instrument.
Oh, nice.
My best example is I have this friend who actually makes Broadway shows in New York. Like produces them, and one of my favorite artists of all time was Sting. Gordon Sumner. I love Sting. Right. From the Police onward, that's and he's worked with him, Annie Lennox, and all those guys because they make like musical like scores. That's one thing they do. And this friend of mine who loves like big into artists and all these, he's absolutely like nuts for Picasso. And one day I don't even remember where we are, and we're having dinner, and he turns to me, he's like, what would you do? What would you do if Picasso was sitting at the table right over there? I said, well, I'd probably nod at him and keep eating. How? How can you? I would have to go and talk to him. I would have to, right? I says, well, okay, let's put it into perspective for you. What would you do if Sting was sitting at that table eating? So yeah, I'd probably nod at him and keep eating. So, well, I would have to go talk to him because that art form, that form of expression is something that I don't really have access to. I love the way it makes me feel. I love the channeling of the energies that comes from the music that I can't do. I can't make the music, right? I have great respect and admiration for those who do. Now, if that was Picasso over there, I understand his motivations. I understand his drive and his passion. It's very similar in different ways to mine, right? But I also understand that he's eating. So I feel let him eat, right? Maybe later, I'm like, hey, sure, all right, let's get a drink or whatever. But apart from that, Sting, if he was sitting there, I would have to go and bug him. And so he's like, okay, I see that's sort of the thing. So for me, if I had anything I wish I could do, it would be play an instrument.
That's such an interesting angle because when you messaged me and mentioned that you would like to do the podcast, I was excited. Would be an understatement. And I think it's a very opposite to what you're saying because my whole life I've been surrounded by very impressive and successful musicians, Grammy-winning people, millions of platinum records or whatever the case might be. And, many people are like, well, many of those people are your friends and you're communicating with them and they're filling stadiums. And I'm like, okay, but I understand them, but meeting someone who is a painter, who is a different kind of art that I'm fascinated by is a completely different thing. So
it is. It's that side of the coin that like the grass is always greener on the other side. Right?
True.
So I like my grass just fine. I can appreciate that grass over there too. So for me, I understand it, and I know I can't do it all. I'd like to, but I can't. right? So yeah, it is. And that also goes back to when I was a kid. I didn't understand or realize the entire Renoir thing because I was surrounded by it. It was so first. It's like the frog in a boiling water doesn't realize that it's surrounded by such amazingness when you're within it to see a different sky is what sort of draws you.
Yeah, absolutely. And final question. It's one of my, it's my signature question that I always ask people that I'm interested in. Just have to ask you as well. What's a question you've never been asked, but you've always wanted to answer?
Oh, that one is really difficult. I've never been asked before. What was the question? I've never been asked, but really want to answer.
Yeah.
It's really hard because people ask me so many things, and I'd love to answer everything. And you have realized that you ask one question, you get like 10 answers.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's hard to not have answered pretty much everything. I was going to say, do you think you would be friends with your great-grandfather or his contemporaries?
Yeah.
And no. There's a couple I'm sure we wouldn't get along very well, but I don't know. It's really hard. There's all sorts of what do you see in the future. Those are answered. I really truly don't have a clue where my art is going to go myself, because it's always evolving and it'll always keep changing as it should. But no, I don't think there's any question that
we can leave that for next time.
I'll actually give it some serious thought, because now you've got me questioning that one. All right.
That's a great, I think that's a great open end that we can continue at some point, Thank you so much for that. It was a massive pleasure. I had such a great time. So thank you so much for your time, honestly.
You're very welcome. Thank you. I also had a great time.
Amazing.
Like you say, I love it all. So thank you for having me, and hi, everybody.
I'm so glad to hear that. And thank you. Thank you for spending your time with me. Have an amazing day, and hopefully I'll talk to you soon again.